Okay, welcome everyone. This is our 7th of February, EMEA America's orchestration demo. So, let's see. Steve, you've got the first demo.
Thanks. I'll go ahead and share my screen to start here. Make sure I got the right one. Okay. So I have a few updates that I've been working on for the extended maintenance policy concerning the updates to danger. And so what this MR is doing is it's adding some additional guards against, or it's specific around the package and test pipeline. So the end-to-end package and test pipeline, it's a pretty expensive pipeline to run, and we discovered in implementing it that it actually does run on all stable branch MRs. So it's an automatic thing, whereas like on canonical, or I guess on master branch, it only runs manually, whereas on stable branch, it always runs. So that's actually kind of a benefit, so we don't have to worry about trying to force people to run it. But what we're doing is we're going to add a couple different errors along the way. So we're not going to allow the pipeline expedite label, because that causes this pipeline to be skipped. And then also, if for any other reason the pipeline is skipped or not present, we also check for that and then have another error that will come up and fail the danger review job. And then last, what we're doing is the general danger output. We just add this block of text kind of pointing engineers in the right direction to say that, you know, this job must be run. And if there are failures, we need to ping a software engineer and test to confirm whether or not the failures are okay or not. And so,
do you know, Steve, like, is that just a ping a random person, or I don't know if you chatted about this with Jen, Myra, like was it the quality on call person or the person with the stage groups?
No, in this case, it should be the set that is counterpart for their team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should clarify that. Yeah.
And I think in the issue, whoever we had been communicating with also mentioned that if that person's not available, they can just ping in the quality Slack channel. So I'll add some details to this, I suppose, to make that a bit more clear.
Perfect.
And so here's an example of when that actually happens. So I just pushed these changes to a stable branch, added the label. I learned quickly that you can't just add the pipeline expedite label. You either need it to be master broken or it needs to be a revert. So in this case, I just labeled it as a revert in order to make this work. And then here we have the failures. So those two failures show up, and then the extra bit of text is at the bottom here. I'm not sure if it's easy to move that up anywhere, because all of these always will be at the top. I potentially could move it above the reviewer roulette somehow, but I'm not sure if that's really helpful at that point.
Yeah. Could we make something to make that text more notable? Because Sanat mentioned that it is very important, if the pipeline fails, someone from quality needs to investigate before this is merged. So yeah. I don't know if perhaps pinging the merge request author there could help, or if that comment is added as a discussion, you know, like with a thread. I don't know if that is possible.
Yeah, I'll see what I have access to put here. I'm pretty sure, I mean, we have access to people here, so we should be able to ping people. So yeah, I think I'll try to set it up where it just pings the author so they see that.
Okay.
But to look a little bit into the changes, this builds on what we already built initially for the stable branch checks. So so here's that message that we can see that's just plain. For some reason, I had a lot of trouble. Like we have this, the main set of checks built into an actual class in the tooling folder. And I really struggled to find a way to get this markdown to render like from that file. So I ended up just putting it back in the Danger file since it's just a block of text. I was going to ask in the review if there is another way, but since it's just a block of text, it's not really a big deal, I think, if it stays there. But then in the actual area for testing, we've got the so what we end up doing is most of it happens right here. So we have a few exceptions where we skip these checks. So we're allowing, if there's a flaky test or a flaky failure label, we're allowing it to bypass these rules, these new rules around the package and test. And then if it's only documentation changes in the MR, then we're also allowing it to bypass these rules because we don't need the package and test for that.
Yeah.
And then here are those two error messages. So one, it fails if it has the pipeline exploit label, and then the other one fails if the package and test has not run. That was an interesting one to kind of dig into. I had to find out how to get that information, which luckily all of the Danger stuff is set up nicely where we have access to the GitLab gem and can easily make some API calls based on the pipeline ID. And then that allows us to find that job. Yeah, so that's kind of the basics of how all that works. I think, yeah, my main questions coming into this demo were, I think, kind of already addressed, which were, like, is this what we want to see and how we want to see it? And I think, yeah, we want to clarify a little bit here and then add some more visibility. But are there any other questions or comments that you have based on what we see here?
Yeah, I do have a comment. So the package and test pipeline takes a while to execute. I think takes 1 hour and 30 minutes or something. So it is a long pipeline. So the workflow is going to be, they are going to open a merge request targeting a stable branch. A pipeline is going to run. Danger is going to check that the package and test pipeline is not manual. And in that case, I think it is going to fail immediately. Is that the case? It is going to fail immediately, and then the developer has to retry it until the pipeline succeeds, or what is going to be?
Yeah, if the way that it's set up is it's only checking if it's manual. So that's the only one where it really where it fails. It'll fail if it's manual or if it doesn't exist at all. So if it's completely skipped. So we could add some other statuses in there. Like we don't want to add canceled. I mean, sorry, we don't want to add failed because we're allowing it to fail. We just need to check with the quality engineer. And we could add canceled. So if for some reason someone decides to manually cancel the job, we should fail Danger, assuming they cancel it before Danger finishes. And then, but yeah, otherwise it's only if it's manual that it will fail automatically. Otherwise, it will keep running.
Okay. Well,
do you know, so this one hopefully is relatively rare, but do you know, given that it's such a long pipeline, what is the workflow if two people merge onto that stable branch like in less than an hour? Does that cancel the pipeline, or do they both get their own independent package and test pipelines?
It's independent in the same because they are different merge requests. Each one has its own. It's when you merge, but this is not what Danger is doing.
Are we totally sure? Because I think is it for master that's not the case. Is that set up differently?
Yeah, but it's after the merge. So
Okay.
before you merge, you're running the merge result pipeline. So you have a virtual point in the history, which is whatever is on the target plus your changes. And it lives in the context of the merge request. So if they push again on the merge request, it may cancel, but it canceled the old run on that same merge request. So if someone is working concurrently on two different merge requests targeting a stable branch, each one has its own independent pipeline. When they got merged into the stable branch, that's a different story.
So that's the commit pipeline. So
Yep.
if there are two commits in sequence, then we run into the same problem we have on master where the first one gets canceled. But we don't have, these rules don't apply to those pipelines.
Yep.
This is purely for the merge request pipelines.
Nice.
Anything else?
I'm just a little bit concerned about authors not seeing this message that, hey, if the package and test pipeline fails, please ping a quality engineer before merging, because technically nothing actually prevents them from merging if we don't have the quality approval. But perhaps this is the part of us delegating this up to engineers and not into us.
I think
So
one
yeah,
thing we
just-
could do is
Mhm.
I'm fairly certain. I mean, this would probably be a bit more work, but we could update the pipeline rules themselves. So outside of danger, actually have, if that pipeline fails, kind of similar to how we have the notifications on pipeline failures for master and for now for stable. We could say if that job fails, we can post a comment to the MR and ping the author that they need to notify the engineer and test.
Oh, yeah, that
That
would make
would-
it more visible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way to do it. That would take a bit more work because we'd have to write some additional rules around that, but I guess it's probably not too bad. I can look at that and perhaps open that as a follow-up to this.
Does
Okay.
anyone know how we handle the when the first approver approves something in GitLab? There is this immediate message that tells
Right.
you, "Thank you for approving." Blah blah. I'm gonna trigger a new complete pipeline, whatever. Which sounds like we have webhooks somewhere that are doing some of those automation. Because maybe
Oh, yeah.
maybe it's another project. I don't know, that is handling this type of situation, and there is going to be easier to add this type of rules, right? So first approval, run the EE package and test, manually run the EE package and test, and then if pipeline failed and it failed on that job, add a comment. So I'm just thinking about what I've seen with Ruben working on the metrics side of this for delivery. And basically, these are the job events, if I remember correctly, and basically it tells you all this information, right? So this pipeline failed on this job, retry count was this. So if this is made on webhooks, it's likely that we can act on top of those situations as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think I know which project that might be, and I was asking about the danger bot. The GitLab bot, I think, is the one that posts that, and the GitLab bot is present in a handful of projects.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good idea to see if that's possible from that angle as well.
So
Yeah,
it
that's
will
a
be
good
two
idea.
follow-ups. One after one engineer approves, then there is going to be the message that, hey, execute or don't forget about the package and test. And then another one, when the package and test fails, we are going to post a message saying, like, you need to get this checked by quality.
Yeah, something like this. It can even be that we run the package and test.
No, the package and test is automatically executed.
Oh, it's automatically executed.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, we discovered
Okay.
that on stable branches. It's
Okay.
just automatic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And so, yeah, just to be clear, I'll continue forward with this as the initial iteration. And then once we have those other comments, we could potentially drop this block from the danger review.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, because that gets us close enough that we can begin doing our dry run testing, whatever that phase is called. What's that phase called? Is it the dry run, Peter?
Yeah, testing basically.
If we can get to that stage, then great, and then we can add on the improvements alongside.
Okay.
Great.
Nice. Great. Thanks, demo, Steve.
Thanks.
What is the other stuff that's going on with the maintenance policy extension? Like, what are the, I guess, like, do we have other things in progress at the moment?
Well, in progress, this is the only one. There are a couple of issues that are ready to be picked in the dashboard regarding adding visibility about the active versions for the maintenance policy.
Okay.
That is one, and I think we have at least another one, but I can't remember at this moment. I just returned from vacation, so my brain is a little dispersed right now.
So I'm wondering whether it might be worth, like, it would be good to know, Myra, like, when you think we can get to like testing inside delivery, so we can start planning that. Like, actually it sounds like, although we do want the active versions for when we get developers involved, we don't need them for the delivery testing, right? Like, so I wonder if there are other things like that that we could plan around. I'm just super keen that we get to the testing, because I mean, it's definitely possible this all works 100% and we've thought of everything. It's also possible that we might have missed some stuff, and it would be good to know what those things are as soon as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have a question, because I don't remember if I missed some of the updates. So the last time I checked the blog post generation, the task was actually generating a file on disk. We're just creating the markdown and for the 3 version blog post. Did we ever get to the next stage of actually creating the merge request or making this easier to use, or is it still that we generate the file and then you have to do the merge request on the website repo manually?
I believe it opens a merge request. I can double check that. I'm pretty sure it's set up to open the merge request. I think, I'm trying to remember, there's an individual rake task that you can run to do it, or I think we did build it into something else, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think there was a rake task, but the merge request is created automatically. And then I think it needs to be adjusted by adding the GitLab author and the keywords at the beginning, but nothing more than that.
So it goes as a replacement of the current task. So there is an option, I don't know, which is to actually have the, I'm thinking, because the current task runs when we merge, right? We have the accumulation branch when we merge things, that thing kicks in and goes there and update the merge request. So we were discussing that this one is different, because basically when you're ready to do the release, you just have to generate the blog post.
Yeah, I think it is associated to a rake task that it is not being used right now.
Okay. So now I will figure out myself. I was going to ask if we already wrote the plan for the testing, but
there is indeed. Like, how are we going to do this testing? I was just thinking exactly the same thing, because we'll need both running in parallel, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, Amy?
Yeah, how are we going to actually go about doing this testing? Because how are we going to, like, are we switching over, or how are you going to get the new tools and sort of process into a flow that we can test whilst we are still only supporting one version?
I think it's already the case, right? Because basically right now you run the old process and it will generate accumulation branches. Then you merge when you're ready, And this basically gives you backport merge into stable branches, which is the entry point for the new process. So at that point, you just tag. So if you leave the old as is, but you also merge things manually, you can just run the new process, right? Because you say things are merged. You see the pending, the number of pending commits and things like that. It's just a matter of generating the blog post, which is the part I was asking about, and then you have to tag, right? So it's the same thing.
And also, I mean, at some point we'll need to test the new issue.
Yeah, my idea was getting some of the merge requests that are labeled on GitLab, we pick into labels and just try to recreate the backport and mergers ourselves and use the new template and just follow up the issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is what we suggest when we were talking about doing an internal test, so that we can actually send something that is designed to be backported, and we just do the backport ourselves.
Cool.
Then to answer the original question, Alessio, I just looked in the code, and we do create the blog post merge request during the release prepare task. So if that is run with no versions, then with no version assigned to it, then we automatically do the new blog post, because normally we would run it with a version as an argument. And so if it's run with no versions as an argument, it'll create the new blog post.
So release prepare is the task that create the tracking issue.
Yes.
So it will, no versions means it will figure out we are doing a patch release with the new process. So I'm gonna create a single tracking issues with the instruction for the 3 new releases plus a merge request on the website with the content that is already available. So it's kind of, give me a quick checklist, prepare me the blog post, we will check that everything is fine, and we merge. And so we tag. That's kind of the, okay.
Yep.
Cool. Is there any other stuff that we should go through on the main policy? Cool. One small update. So I have some time booked in with Sam tomorrow to give him hopefully enough of an overview that he can answer some of the questions. I've added a draft issue to your Epic Myra so that we can start planning the rollout, like the official rollout. Probably some pieces that come into that. So we will want to make sure that like internal people know about it, so that support teams are aware, and product managers, and sort of people who often do a lot of this communication. We also probably want to do some sort of external blog post and explain what's changing and why. So I'll chat with Sam about what might be involved with getting those sorted out. And then I have a couple of other questions for him, which I don't think he'll have an immediate answer, but it will be good ones for him to help us figure out. One is going to be around the actual rollout date. So just Myra and I chatted about this a couple of weeks ago. We've proposed 15/11, which is April 22nd, based on our timeline of work. I'll have a chat with Sam and let him go figure out if that's a sensible date from a product/company perspective, or whether tying with the major milestone maybe makes more sense. I have also added a question for him around what might be the expectation once we do switch, because we have a slightly awkward switchover period. So assuming we do switch on 15.11, then we will end up having 15.9 gets bug fixes for current version. It's got security fixes. We release 15.10. 15.10 is getting bug fixes and security fixes. And 15.9 is still getting security fixes. 15.11 is getting bug fixes. And then we also open up bug fixes for 15.9 and 15.10. So the question really is, at that point, are we going to need to take everything that we patched in 15.10 and backport it essentially to 15.9? Or is that going to be okay? It's only going to be a 1 month oddity before the support changes. But I'm going to let Sam go and figure out what the expectations might be around that from a kind of a user perspective.
Yeah, because I think we had this conversation where we were saying that the expectation could be that everything in the support window will receive every bug fix. But yeah, ultimately is a kind of a decision of the product manager or is with the team, right? So not our project manager. Is development team that is.
It's certainly a product decision for sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
or higher up in product as a general point of view for everything.
So yeah, I think once Sam has figured out the answer to that, we can then start to make a plan. Either it's a no, in which case, great, like we just keep going. Or if it's a yes, then I think we need to probably just think about, do we do something where we basically ask everyone who has patched something in 15.10, for example, to backport, or do we do something like a rollout process? So that's probably a bit of an unknown at the moment, but well, let Sam figure out what that should look like first. Cool. Great. And before I move to this other one, so sorry that we lost you for a bit at the beginning, Alessio. I've updated the Zoom links, so hopefully
No problem.
they're both the same. One item I did want to kind of ask about is, given that we have got this big change coming, and particularly with the big change coming for developers quite soon, is there anything useful that we can either ask about or share or market in tomorrow's AMA?
Perhaps we can give like an update or a brief description about what the change is coming and what the change that is coming about open up the stable branches and extending the maintenance policy.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about I stage a question around that? And then you can maybe give the highlights, Myra.
Yeah.
Will you wear a prop?
Sure.
And I think the really key thing that we can emphasize here is that this is our first really big shift towards more of a self-serve model, because what we hopefully find is that we will have fewer cases of people needing to put in backport requests and try and convince us to do something. Like this gives the teams, and we can add this in if you don't cover all these points, Myra, but just as for all of us to kind of, I guess, have this, like, for when we're talking with other people as well, like, people have a little bit less of a, hey, I have to go and convince a release manager, and they can actually do a lot of this themselves, and we just respond to the dashboard. So hopefully, although it adds a little bit of task, hopefully it removes a huge amount of friction, and will really help people get the right fixes to users.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's very likely the 3 versions back covers all the usual needs, the vast majority of backport requests. But I think it also unlocks an important thing, which is more of a long-term goal, which is if we get a smooth process around this, this will open up for having even outside of policy requests being easy to handle, because it will become merge, prove me is green, I'll tag. So it's a decision that can be made on the moment, right? Because right now is someone came to us with, I would like to do this, and there is a lot of uncertainty around, will it work? Will it be able to merge it? Will it backport? Will the package be fine? With this approach, it's more like, I already made the work. So I have a stable branch with a working fix that I need to ship. Is there anyone available to tag a release? And so we can't because we are doing the security release and we are full of work. Or yes, we can do next week. And it's just a matter of running it.
Nice. Awesome. Is there any other stuff we should cover? So quick check-in on collaboration. We may rotate this question depending on new retro actions, but from our Q3 retro, does anyone have any kind of additional requests for collaboration? No. One that we will I was chatting with Jen yesterday from EP, and one that we should make sure that we kind of maintain into the coming months is, I think one of the biggest unknowns about this maintenance policy extension is what it does to workload for release managers and for quality and for EP. So I think we should probably just keep that in mind as well as a kind of like, for future iterations, like those would be really good check-in points for us to actually make a decision on, like, is there something else that needs to change to help reduce those? And one other thing I found that's semi-unrelated, but it's also great news, is for Q1, EP have their OKR as set around flaky tests for master. So that will be huge, not just for maintenance policy, but just generally day to day as well. So I think we'll start to see some really, really good sort of results from that as well. Awesome. Great. Final thoughts, final comments, anything else we should cover? No? Okay, in which case, thank you very much. Thanks for the demo, thanks for the chats. And